the conversation that's actually ongoing already.
I mean, I have
Like
great
the
news for
idea
you
of
on
like
that front,
podcast.
Stephen.
Did we just do that?
That's happening right now.
It's happening right this second. We're going to be right. Maybe off the top, we have to say I'm going to be drawing like a lot. So I hope that you draw with me. And we've got the source image on screen, so you can do that. I'm going to draw probably about as fast as I can, and then I'm going to just let Stephen take care of the questions that come from the live chat. So you have something you want to talk about, just tell me. Otherwise, I'll be drawing very messily over here.
We have a person here.
That's good signaling, isn't it? I did a good job on that.
I nailed it. Every single bit. You hit all of the important parts. For someone watching in the future, someone watching now.
Yes.
You have a person, Veritas Art, saying, "Ooh, we are live and alive."
We're live and alive. I feel barely alive. I feel like March in Norway is like really getting to me, but I'm here.
Is March in Norway particularly bad?
March in Norway is like the most bland of like, picture like bad weather and then just give it like not even exciting version of bad weather. It's just it's just drab, you know. But I'll say this: the snow is melting, and that is beyond my wildest dreams. Is that fulfilling me right now?
Is that's the bar? It's like that's the start. I feel like for everyone.
Dude, it's been a long February. It's been such a long February. Like I can't even tell you how much I've not enjoyed it. I mean, everybody knows that I've been having like panic attacks and ongoing anxiety and stuff.
When you say everybody,
you have that,
mean like the person in the grocery store, or
I mean, in general. So, well, like everybody that follows me on Patreon knows, because I do these like town hall, like Zoom calls where we just all get together and talk about whatever's going on. And I've been bringing it up, or I brought it up in the last one, just because it's, you know, something that's really happening to me, and I know that it happens to a lot of people. And for me, you know, talking to other people about it was really useful. So I just felt like it's a bit of a PSA, you know, like everybody suffers. You know what I mean? Everybody can have anxiety. There's no restrictions around it. Nobody's like safe from it just because you're, I don't know, a popular YouTuber.
No, yeah, I very much agree. I think that it's something that anyone can experience, and the worst thing that any individual person experiences is still the worst thing, even if it's just, you know, you tripped on something multiple times this week, and so you're side-eyeing every ground object and melting down about it. That's your biggest woe. That's fine.
Yeah, exactly. So I say everybody knows because I've talked about it quite a bit. That's why I say that.
So you do have the two excited people here.
All right.
So Veritas Art saying that yes, February has been just it's been going by just brutally.
Yeah.
And then where's this person here? Doug. Hello, Doug. Hello, Karan.
Doug. Welcome to the stream, Doug.
Doug wishes you a blessed morning with coffee emojis.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice.
Are you a coffee person, Stephen?
I'm so much of a coffee person. I had when I was living in Jersey City, there was a coffee roaster that literally was like in the building, like downstairs. So because of that, you know, I would come in and get there. Like they were coffee importers and roasters, and so I got like the inside scoop about like all the new blends, and I got really, really into coffee when I lived there. What about, by the way, well, hold on. There's an exposition here off the top, so we can like take everybody out of the moment. I don't know if everybody knows you. This is the first like YouTube stream proper, no? Or
you no, I think you raise a good point here. Hello, I am Stephen, not that one. We're here to, like, I'm here to basically be a person that can read comments to Stephen while he draws. So I think in the best sense, you found an extension of yourself to try to do this. Like it's pipeline of Stephen to Stephen.
It's a closed system. It's a closed system. Yeah. I only would have hired someone called Stephen for this.
Yeah, it's a good
Yeah.
system. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, when I was initially thinking of like how to like introduce the idea that there are two Stevens, I played with so many different like wordplay things, and all of them are terrible.
No,
Uh,
that's yeah, I get that.
I was like, yeah, no, it's like, you know, S and S, but not that one, not the war crime one. Like,
Oh, not the.
yeah, I was like, I couldn't think of anything to use for this.
It's not a
But yeah,
really the brand is not strong for those two
no,
initials.
yeah, there's a critical failing. You'll watch it, like pretty much any YouTube channel or anything where they're like, yeah, we're gonna design a logo for some fake company, and it'll be, you know, like Steven Socks, and the
Even
first thing they
socks.
reach for, if they're any sort of young, is putting those two letters
Mm-hmm.
next to each other.
It's not good. It's not ideal.
But yeah,
We're
people
not
might
going
have
to
seen
do
me.
that here.
No, people might have seen me streaming with Steven in the past over on my day job. But no, we liked it so much we decided to do it more often. Hopefully
That's
you
the
guys like
idea.
it too. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
So
Do we have
is
any? Are there any questions coming in? Do we have any?
no questions so far.
No
I tried
questions. What?
to I
Where is
prompted
everybody?
them. I prompted these people with questions in here too, and no
All
one has
right.
answered these questions.
That's a lot. That's a lot slower than I usually get a lot of questions. But whatever. I'm here. I can talk. Believe me, I can talk at length about stuff that I want to talk about.
I am curious if any of the people here in this chat are like Patreons of your patrons.
I feel like it would be like 100% of like
You
just by mere fact of like they're keeping up with like some random live stream that I'm doing like in the middle of in the middle
So
of
the
the
Venn
I guess the
diagram
middle of
is
the
just
morning
a
for them.
circle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
for
Venn
me,
diagram between go ahead.
for me, this is 7:07 a.m. So I don't know what it'll be
707.
like.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, it's
I
fine.
apologize for that.
Nah. Listen, it's harder for you. You're at the tail end of your day. I'm fresh. I'm spry.
Spry. I gotta say, I'm like very much a. I'm very much like a. I'm self-employed. I wake up at 9. Sometimes mostly 9:30. I would say is my probably like my average wake up time, and I consider it like it's a luxury that I pay for with the fact that I have no like overarching company looking out for my best interests.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I personally, I also wake up late. I ended up being able to get an atypical job, and it kind of works out.
When did you? By the way, when did you start working with Proco? How long has it been? How long have you guys been together?
I think that's 2 years now.
2 years at Proco.
It feels wild because before that I was working like a data entry job, managing spreadsheets
entry.
It was all data breach stuff. So I was just combing through emails that had been compromised.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I got to listen to a lot of podcasts.
You live to like tell about it, man. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. For now. Let's see. So Veritas Art is asking, Steven, did you announce it on your Instagram? Did you want to address why you chose not to for this one?
I think that oftentimes with projects that you're starting up, raising the barrier of entry in any way, shape, or form is a way to like make yourself not able to get it done. It seems like, sure, I'm on Instagram and I'm on, whatever platforms. But it's just like, what people don't see is like before you start a stream is like the 45 minutes of like waffling around your studio, like trying to figure out what's wrong with the stream. And so like, no, I didn't announce it anywhere. I just wanted to do it and like get it done. And it seemed like raising the barrier of entry would be, would compromise the effort overall. But eventually I will be a little bit better about announcing these, hopefully like even, doing them on schedule.
Yeah. I think also since it's the first one of this type, getting to just do it casually, I think is good. You guys get to be here for the making the sausage.
This is the launch. You guys are getting in on the ground floor.
Mm-hmm. Invest now. Buy early.
before Fox or CNN kind of buys us out,
It's inevitable.
So I think of
So
like some big network that would want this, and obviously that's neither of those two would.
no. I think you're underselling it. Someone will want this. Not for any other thing that's out there. It's just that we'll have said one particular phrase that they need to be able to own the rights to. So they buy the
Yeah.
show to have the phrase.
That's gonna be this is catchphrase development 101 right here.
Retitle the stream. I'm gonna get into the YouTube backend. So we do have some comments from Doug.
All right, Doug, what's
just
up?
being a hero with the commentary here. Doug asked a question. Well, actually, I should say, Doug made a comment, and then I don't think we addressed it, and so Doug rephrased it in the form of a question, which A+ technique, Doug. I love it. So Doug first said that they enjoyed your smudging, and then reframed it of, when did you start using smudge so much?
Yeah, this is all right. So me and like every single other person who ever went through art school was at some point or other convinced with the, that the oils from your hand are going to get into the paper and they're going to damage it, and like you just hear it and it's so convincing that you go like, yeah, that sounds reasonable. I'll never smudge. And then I'll never smudge turns into, well, now I'm a teacher, so I will tell other people not to smudge. And then at a certain point, you just like, it just becomes canon, and like you can't get out of it because you've said it before. You've said, don't smudge or it'll damage your paper. I've never actually seen the full-on evidence of smudged paper damage over time. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but of all the times I've said it, I've never actually seen the evidence of it. So I'm saying it can happen. I'm saying I've not seen it happen, and I'm reticent to continue recommending it if I find it such like a useful tool, or recommending not to do it rather. Like I think it's one of the most useful things that I do in my drawings in the early stages, and it gives you a particular kind of edge that like you don't get otherwise. Like, and I use stumps and I use different things, but like there's just nothing does exactly what this does, smudges in exactly this way. So I started it. It was around the time I started working with Ivan Loginov. Actually, I started getting critiques from this Russian artist who's really, really, really good at drawing, and I noticed that he does it a lot, and so I was like, well, if it's good enough for him, like I'm going to give it a try. And then it, it became an indispensable part of my sort of tool repertoire.
Yeah. Speaking of which, you do something else with this person. That's I think it just wrapped up on Patreon.
Right? Yeah. The composition course for portraiture is something I developed after working with Ivan, basically because the philosophy that you take, like in the Rep Academy, for instance, is very different from the one that I took when I studied in Florence, for instance, where we were taught to study, basically to look at studies as a kind of a more pure exercise, that our job was just to try to be as true as possible to the subject, and that was the beginning and ending of your artistic consideration for that project. At the Rep Academy, like it's probably 180 degrees different. Like their idea is that you should be making a great composition, and that composition should involve whatever it is you're actually drawing. So if it's a portrait, you'll be studying composition while making a portrait. If it's a figure, you'll be studying composition while drawing the figure. And I just thought that was so kind of enlightening, that I took all the work that I did and I kind of formatted that into a series of lessons, like a series of 3 lessons about composition and about portraiture and how those things are intertwined, and how you can apply that to your own work. And I, like anything worth saying, like it took a few video parts to kind of bring it all together. So it's a 3-part series. The first part is getting the first critiques and understanding the kind of new paradigm for drawing. The second one is a way to elaborate on that and work with a portrait while doing it. And the third one goes into the kind of straw that stirs the drink, and that is thumbnail drawing, which I'm sure everybody's familiar, but if you're not, thumbnail drawing is just a way to make a small sketch that conceptualizes the drawing that you eventually want to make. So it's a study made for the purposes of understanding composition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think from what you've told me about it, I like the idea very much. Like I'm not a high-minded, take my time kind of art person, but I definitely think that there's something to be said for the idea of practicing actively rather than just practicing in this weird practice box.
Yeah,
I think stretching outside of that and doing something where you're actually still making a thing and applying that it makes more sense to me.
Well, actually, and hold on, I gotta switch my earbuds because that was the first thing to go wrong in the stream properly. Is that my earbud died? If that's all we get this time, I only had one in, so the battery only died on one of them. So, but this is the sales pitch for why you should study composition while you're also figuring out how to draw. Because if you do both at the same time, by the time you're proficient in drawing, you will simultaneously be proficient in composition. Meaning that when you're ready to actually make the drawings you want to make, you'll have practiced enough that your sense of composition is developed, because it has to evolve over time. Like anything that's good, it takes a while to kind of develop it. So I would say to you, instead of waiting and saying well, now I'm going to study portraiture. I don't know why I'm doing a pejorative voice for that. Now I'm going to study portraiture, and then later, I'll study composition. I'll start making artwork. Well, you can actually do both. It's not that much harder to do both at the same time, in my estimation.
Mm-hmm. I very much agree, and I think you end up kind of you backdoor your way into one of them.
Yeah.
We do have a couple other people here joining in the chat. So it looks like Madeline is here from Skane, Sweden. I don't necessarily know.
Skåne, maybe?
It's got a little character above the A.
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
I think it's probably Skåne.
Okay. Yeah, I love languages. Has some character modifiers. Not familiar. So we do have some questions actually now.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So Veritas Art is asking Steven, how do you digitally? Oh no. Okay.
Wait, what?
How do you digital hatching, or what is your way of digital painting?
I try to digitally paint in exactly the same way as I paint, which actually handicaps me. Like the same way that I paint analog is the same way that I paint digital, which means digital isn't that much of a kind of leg up. I usually use it for I use Procreate for a kind of ideation. So if I'm trying to figure out what kind of composition I want to do, I'll work with the source image on Procreate, darkening the background, lightening the background. If it's a more creative piece, I might be doing full kind of in painting to kind of create the vibe that I want to create. Whereas actually making something, I tend to I paint one layer totally analog when I'm working digitally, which it doesn't take that much advantage of what the digital medium is. But
yeah,
I mean, I feel like my art form is a very analog one. And so I think that's where a lot of my expression comes from, is that kind of analog manipulation of shapes and stuff like that. So it's a little bit maybe uninteresting or unedifying, how I go about doing any digital work. That's my feeling anyway.
Yeah, there's something to be said for maintaining that process, because there are plenty of people who moved over from traditional work into digital, and then they just found themselves doing that 1 million layer dance.
Yeah.
And then they feel freed when they go back over to traditional painting. So
yeah, exactly. I just, I like that process. There's nothing I didn't like about it. I think the digital thing, I think, is just interesting in terms of working on what working on a lighted screen does for luminosity and things. It's just a different ball game, and I think you can kind of do different things with it. But then the thing that that gave me pause about it is like when I first started painting on Procreate, I thought, oh, this is so interesting. I wonder what these would be like if I brought them out like into the real world. What I discovered is that working with printers, really it's not the same, like, because when you have a lighted screen behind the subject, it kind of looks one way. And when you have it out in the real world without that light behind it, it looks kind of a different way. And it's not different worse, but it's just different. And I think, I don't know, at that point, maybe I would, I think it'd be interesting to do non-color related stuff with it. Like I want to do some digital drawings and then kind of make prints of those, because I feel like the black and white experience is just closer to what the final expression of the artwork is. If that makes sense.
Okay. No, I do.
One man's opinion.
Yeah. That's all we've got here at the end of the day.
That's all we've got.
I do think it's an interesting idea, though. Do you think that there was any sort of consideration for something being backlit? If, like, say, for an artist like Drew Struzan, who was doing movie posters, where he knew it was going to get put up on some big old light box, do you think that he approached a piece differently knowing this?
I don't know the first thing about Struzan, except like he's really cool and he was definitely a childhood inspiration.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I don't know if it motivated anything, like the large like areas of white, if that was supposed to be something that leaned into knowing that would be illuminated.
Oh, interesting.
That's an odd one. We have the traditional art questions here. Doug asking, what pencil did you start with? 4B?
I think I started with a 4B. Yeah, like I just started with whatever the heaviest thing I could find was at the time. I just wanted to like get, you know, something out on the paper, something that looked like something pretty rapidly, and that means usually like not messing around before you get into values, which is going to mean I'm going to have this really awkward middle phase where the drawing looks really bad, probably kind of like it looks now, but I'm okay with that if everybody else is.
I feel like they're probably okay with this, and most of the people here in this chat would be absolutely happy if this was the end result of a piece. Curious, I can't make polls right now, guys, but just go ahead and say in the chat if you think that this piece currently looks bad. Also, go ahead and say if you think it looks good. But
yeah, maybe like give them an option. Don't prime them for like. Just comment if you think this looks like. You know what? I was just about to curse Steven. And then I didn't because I think it's not safe for work.
Yeah,
it's not safe for work, and I think that's.
Should we have them create the curse words for the stream at the beginning of a stream? Is that the activity we ask from the chat?
That would be harsh. That would be a rough looking chat. Like people would be like logging into this later on, like, what happened during this live stream?
Well, no,
we like berating. We have to say
the fake ones. Like we have to. It's like the Pee-wee word of the day kind of thing. We got to say Dookie. You know.
Oh, wow! All right, I would allow that if that's the audience's feeling that we want to do that, I would do that. But that's a hard. I remember. So when I did my first video with Stan, like this is years and years ago, before. No, I think I just started Patreon at that time, and Stan came to my studio in Jersey City, and like filmed a whole drawing session with me, which you can still actually get on Progo.com.
Absolutely.
But. So he's sending me back these clips, right? Like because for he was kind enough to like include me in the editorial like process, you know, like oh, we're gonna do this with the video, you know, do you think that's cool or whatever? And so he sends me this one clip where, if you know Stan, you know, like Proko's whole sort of public identity, you know, he does like a laugh, and the jokes are sophomoric, and that's totally good and fun. So he sends me this one. I'm trying to frame it in the nicest way possible, but he sends me this one where like I'm talking about something, and I think it goes into like some sort of like fart sound audio. And he was like, "We think this is great. What do you think?" I think he was just trolling me. I'm sure of it, because nothing that I must have said over the course of like the 3 or 4 days would have given him any impression that that was part of the brand. But he anyway. So the idea that people would be finding an expletive substitute that I would have to say during a stream does give me a little bit of anxiety, if I'm honest. But
okay, no, that's fair.
I would do it if, you know what, upon further review, if I'm allowed to review and then go, no, that sounds terrible, I'm not going to do that, then I would do it.
That's fair. Yeah, you want to review the faux curse words. I understand.
Exactly. I don't want to like agree beforehand to something that I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's basically what I'm trying to stay out of.
So in here, people have said that they do not think that it looks bad, but I will say this one person, they did write the word bad in capital letters. So I don't know if they're trying to, like backdoor that thing to say it actually does look bad.
So.
However, everyone else says Steven always does magnificent portraits. I'm a total fan of his. Holy schlumoly, this looks great. Looks wicked good.
That's very
cool
kind.
Drawing.
That's very kind.
We do have
there's always on YouTube. There's always someone who feels possessed, and I respect this, to give the unsolicited critique of what's going on. I realized this really quickly when I started live streaming on YouTube, that it's a place where people go to, just cut loose and let the world know about their opinions, and I respect that. I'm part of this ecosystem too. So if you want to say it's bad, that's fine. I don't mind.
Yeah. We respect your bad opinion out there, chatters. So this is I'm gonna go ahead and say this is no name. But if your name is Nonami or something, I'm so sorry. They said, I find Strathmore charcoal laid paper to have too much texture. What charcoal paper is best for portraits, in your opinion?
All right. So if you're saying one of the Strathmore papers has too much texture, then I think obviously we want to shoot for something smoother. Good paper for charcoal. Now I need to ask you a question about that, then, questioner. Because are you talking compressed charcoal or vine charcoal? Because I would say my answers would be different for each one. And I don't want to risk giving you a bad answer about like the wrong paper or about the wrong material.
Let's assume one. Oh, they said nitram charcoal.
Nitram charcoal. So it's a vine charcoal, right? Got it. I think in the case of vine charcoal, now this goes a little bit outside of like at the Florence Academy, we actually used very rough paper, something called Roma paper, which was, I remember being introduced to it and going like, why on earth would like anybody want to use this for any reason? It's almost like corrugated cardboard to draw on. Now, eventually, over the years, you get a bit of like a Stockholm syndrome with it, where you start to appreciate its very rough qualities. But the fact is, like, since I've left the academy, I've never used it. So make of that whatever you will. It's hard to say that because, again, like usually with vine charcoal, you're looking for a paper that's going to like pick up a lot of charcoal, and usually that's kind of rougher papers. Another one that a lot of people used for a while was Arsh's cold press watercolor paper, and they would use like the medium tooth. Now that's not like the most toothy in the world, but it's not smooth. And if you didn't like a Strathmore paper, I also think you're probably not going to like that one. I wonder. I think a lot of people will just use the actual Strathmore 400 sketching paper if they use compressed charcoal. But I don't think vine would work really well in that. Have you tried Canson's? It's called Meton, but it's in French, so it's like TEINTES. That's one that I've used for charcoal drawings. The thing is, it doesn't get like particularly dark. That's the problem with it. Like you can't even if you're using a softer charcoal, you're not going to get like the absolute darkest value out of it. So yeah, a few different,
I've never heard of anyone using the like a cold press watercolor paper for this. This makes sense though.
Oh, it picks up so much charcoal, and if you're willing to like work with it and kind of get into the holes of the paper and the grooves of the paper, like it will definitely deliver a really substantial value. But you really have to kind of work with it quite a bit. You know, something I see a lot of people do is like I feel like it's a very popular kind of YouTube thing. A lot of people use like a brush to like rub like, you know, graphite or charcoal into the paper. I've never done it myself, but it seems to be like a really popular thing to do.
We do have one little bit of feedback from them here. They said,
all right.
They said, yeah, they just said that the Strathmore paper feels like too much texture, basically, to boil it down.
Strathmore paper feels like too much texture. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I get it. You know, I guess let me. I'll give you the advice that when I was recommending people to work on a very textured paper at that school, what we said. So, if you want to get your drawing to look good fast, you'll need like a smoother paper. But if you're willing to like work with it for quite a while, eventually like a rougher paper will deliver the goods. It just takes a bit longer. And for us, I mean, charcoal drawings would take like a long time. We'd take like, you know, 40, 50, sometimes 75 hours on a single drawing. So it didn't seem an inappropriate investment of our time to like work on something rougher paper that would allow for a higher ceiling in terms of the overall value expression. But getting like great values on a smooth paper that gets even tones fast, I mean, that's like a small target to try to hit, you know?
Okay. No, I hope that one answers your question in full. So right now, I will say that Doug in the chat, again, just being the absolute champion. They pointed out that we had 62 people at the time watching. Right now it says 95. But yeah, it's 62 people watching and only 38 likes. Thank you, Doug. Thank you for calling everyone here on their nonsense.
You know, I mean, like, let's see. I mean, I get it by watching and not clicking around, you know? So you don't have like your hand on your mouse, like ready to chuck a like into it. I think likes on live streams in general are a little bit lower. However, it is a thing that, you know, that helps me a little bit and costs you nothing. So if you didn't mind, I wouldn't,
just
you know what I mean? It'd be okay with me. It will cost you no dignity. Dignity will be completely intact, I promise. Yeah, but you know, throwing a like my way is not a bad bit of reciprocity.
Yeah. No, put the pencil down, everybody. I know you're deep in the middle of your masterpiece, drawing along with Steven here today. But you know, just put it down. Tap the like button. Thank you so much. I think this was a Clavane05. Is there a difference between a sketch and a quote unquote proper artwork? Or is the latter only something that you push further?
No. There's massive differences. The best way to frame this, I would say, is between I like movie making metaphors. Like my mind's a lot in kind of movie making at the moment, which, you know, to be revealed one day is that I want to make like movie type content myself. But that's it's a whole different story, which I'm actually very happy to talk about eventually. But
I've heard the pitch. Good.
The metaphor that I think is most salient to this is collecting footage, right? So we've all got telephones that have like dozens and dozens and dozens of video clips on them, right? Now, you wouldn't look at those video clips and say, cumulatively, if you just stack them up with one another, that they constitute a movie, because a movie has a script, it has a plot, it has intent, it has a plan, it's figured out beforehand, it's executed, there's improvisation that takes place inside of that. It's a highly rigorous process of like developing and bringing you know, a hopefully great concept to fruition. And it's definitely not just a collection of video clips. And so I think the difference between a study and an artwork is kind of similar to me. Like, I think studies are great, you know, I like making them, but I don't consider them to be like really full-on artworks. They're a meditation on something. And I think that's deep and that's beautiful. This is so much not about like qualitative evaluation that I'm saying, oh, like a study is, oh, it's nothing. Study is really something. A study, you know, I'll make studies for my entire life. But then if I'm making artwork, I think it implies that there's more going on than looking at something and trying to reproduce it. Even though you can make a study that I think is so lively and heightened that it can seem to resemble an artwork. I just think they're different. They're different processes, you know.
Do you think that it's something that
yeah.
a viewer would be able to take away from looking at the two different pieces?
Looking at the two different pieces, yes.
Like, do you think if a person looked at it, they would look at it and go, yeah, this one was art and this one was a study?
Yeah, but I think when you're asking that question, I'm not sure if you're zooming out far enough, because well, just to say, like there are like a drawing, you know, like this is a drawing, and I could work on it for a long time, and you know, it would develop, you know, a different aesthetic, and I would. But I think when I think of artwork, I think of something much more elaborate than this, and then yes, I think you would be able to tell. The things that are coming to mind, unfortunately, at the moment are paintings. So obviously you would, but like even a painted study, if I was making this in oil paint, and then I brought you a picture that I think would constitute an actual artwork, I think you'd see the difference. In fact, let's see the difference. Do you want to see the difference?
I think so.
I want to see the difference. All right, I'm going to go bring a study over here, and then I'm going to bring in artwork over here.
And you want them to guess?
We can all be. If you have to guess, I'm going to be super shocked. I'm going to be super shocked if you have to guess. All right, so switch the cam to my my face cam, and I'll bring two of these over.
We're ready.
All right.
Thank you guys for being in the chat. We'll get back to some more of these questions here.
All right.
After we compare.
I need to make sure I choose like the right one. There's several I could choose. This is, wait, I'm almost there, guys. I'm almost there. The suspense is building, I'm sure. Yeah, here we go. This will be perfect. This is the perfect comparison in between the two. All right, so we have a study. This is an alla prima study. In fact, it's a study that I made a course for. It's actually a course that's available on my website, on my Patreon, and on Proco. But you can see the color values are pretty consistent. The drawing is pretty good. The light effect is there. It's a good study of a portrait.
In the chat here, Veritas Art said portrait of Alyssa. Is that what that's from?
This is in progress, but I would say this is more consistent with what I would think of as an artwork. It's too far back and it's a little bit out of focus. Maybe I'll bring it into the light, like break my whole streaming setup. But this had like several studies that went into it, lots of stages of ideation, and now is in a kind of production phase. I would say that to me constitutes what I think of as an artwork. It's a theme that's been developed. It's a concept that's been worked on. Multiple versions of it have been thrown out. Different poses tried, color schemes, like all these things were worked on several times. Now, it's not to say that you can't make an artwork in a way that is just involving naturalism. That's true also. But I still think the process of like I keep saying ideation, and I don't know like how familiar that term will be to everybody, but it just means like you're mulling over an idea, you're trying different options, you're seeing how they work, you're doing studies, and you're trying to figure out what is the best, most heightened expression of your theme. Then I think you start talking about making artwork. And I know this sounds like probably people are going like, oh, well, I don't know, maybe it's elitist or whatever. I don't think it is. I think it's just, they're just two different things, and that's totally okay. Chopin, the famous composer, wrote what he called études. So I guess I think in French that means just like little studies, and they're beautiful. There's some of his most beautiful music, and they're just little studies. They're great. But you wouldn't say that one of these little études is a symphony. It's not. They're just different forms.
You did share when you were still developing that idea for that larger piece on a stream, I believe. You shared a smaller one.
Yeah.
Someone in here in the chat they mentioned having seen that one. I think that was I was with you for at least one of those where you were sharing this.
Yeah, actually, it was the last live stream I did, which was I think it was with you. It was the first time you co-piloted.
Yeah, I very much agree. I think that there are a lot of things where a person could have a very good result in something that is much it serves a different purpose, but they don't necessarily, they're not emblematic of the same thing.
I think, by the way, now we have to I guess separate, because I think the thing that we respond to in popular culture is that everybody's like, well, the art of basket weaving, the art of this, and the art of and it's fine. It's okay. That's the world we're living in. And I'm not trying to keep anybody out. I don't want to gatekeep art making. Just to say, you can look at it as, the art of drawing. I'm writing a book called The Art of Portraiture. It's okay to use that word for things. But then if you want to engage in a meaningful conversation about well, what do we mean when we say that, and what are we actually talking about? That would be my definition. It's a lot of conception. It's a lot of reflection deeply about what is the way to express something. What is the story that you're actually trying to tell?
Yeah, I don't think that there's anything wrong with acknowledging a difference between some different layers of expression.
Okay. What do people think? I wonder if people think that. I wonder if the people out there in the world, if they're like, this is gatekeeping, you guys are evil.
So far, no one here has said anything bad. The main thing that people have asked for is kind of drilling into more of how you perceive this one. So Terry Trudel
that
asked,
artwork. Yeah.
They were asking, how many times are you painting the study before you make the actual piece? And people also liking your piece, by the way. Obviously, it was a foregone conclusion. It was a fantastic one.
Thank you. I actually feel like there's about 2 paintings that I've made in my lifetime that I think are really, really special. And that right now, that's one of them. But say the other question first, because I was taken aback by the compliment, and my mind just went to they like me. They actually like me.
I think I'm actually going to put something ahead of that one, because I think this furthers what you were talking about. So Frederick said, I consider cave paintings artworks. Do you have anything to say with this?
Cave paintings. I consider cave paintings to be artworks. Well, I think that, again, perhaps we have a challenge of semantics here, and I don't like to say that because it's an easy way to go, oh well, we don't know, we don't have a conclusion, so we'll just say it's semantics. I think that follows along with the kind of contemporary, and I'm not even saying it's wrong, but the contemporary conception of artwork and the use of the term artwork. I mean, again, I would just refer to my metaphor about kind of movie making to clarify my point. Now, if I could use another word for art, if I had some substitute for it that was equally meaningful but not ambiguous in the way that artwork is nowadays, then I would use that. But if that's the term we all have to use when we talk about it, I'm still going to say, like, I think that there's something different, like the process of conceptualization, working with a theme, planning out the theme. I mean, cave paintings, I think it's interesting to call them art. I mean, they existed in a time before there was even the notion of art. So I don't know. I'm going to, you know, just respectfully disagree. I don't say that nobody can think that, but it doesn't follow along with my own personal orientation about the term and about that work itself.
I think that's the nature of art, baby. Like
the
thing that I've kind of always said about it is that there's the distinction, like you said, with words, how words are all broken and meaningless at the exact same time as meaning so much. If you want to try like draw a distinction between the different veins of art, there's like capital A art and lowercase art, and which one gets the capital and which one doesn't is also up to you. But I think that it's like just a personal kind of journey to distinguish them, but there is a difference.
Yeah. And probably the useful thing to come out of it is that, like, you know, you need to meditate on it. You need to think about this. I would be interested to hear why you would call it art. Like, I mean, I'm not even to say, like, I want to just repeat over and over, not to discount it. I just want to know your point of view. Like, why is it that you would say that?
So there's a comment here from a person who's of a different thought than you on this one. However,
I feel like everybody's going to have a different thought than me.
Yeah, but I think that you and I are uniquely positioned to have feelings about this one. Rick Urbanowski says art versus art seems like a waste of energy to me. But then they also say cave paintings are graffiti, and I love graffiti. As two former graph boys, I think that you and I have feelings about this one.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I'm on board with like stuff that's painted on walls. You know, if we want to, you know, it's interesting. I remember, you know, back when I was more active in graffiti, that space of like trying to define, you know, where we were at vis-a-vis like what is proper graffiti versus what isn't. And for me, the illegality of it was actually a big part of it, because I was in that generation where you know, graffiti artists kind of the first and second waves were getting older. And like what happens when you get older is the stuff that you do starts to become a profession. And they were trying to figure out like, how do I make a living doing this? And so it moved into the gallery space. And I always, this is again, I like this, we should just call this the unpopular opinion show, because all the things that I'm going to say are like a little bit exclusive and people aren't going to like them. And that's okay. But the illegality of graffiti then became more and more important to me, that you were actually, to be a practitioner of this, you had to go outside the law. It was not an easy, convenient thing that you could just do in your living room and say, like, I'm a graffiti writer. Anyway, but that's such a, I don't even like, I get ashamed saying that because it's so like inside club exclusive. I apologize for that opinion while simultaneously still holding it, kind of.
I felt that graffiti was, quite frankly, like the perfect thing to break it down with. I don't know if you want to move on to talking about a different thing, but I do think that it's the perfect emblematic expression of this idea, if you want to drill into it.
Come on, let's have it.
So for graffiti, I think that there is an acknowledged idea of the difference of quality between like a throw where someone's just writing their name somewhere, or a piece that exists on a wall. And so there's an inherent idea that these people are doing the same thing. They're both doing graffiti, but they're worlds different in quality, expression, time put in, and mastery.
Listen to this guy. Can we do a slow clap? Can we just do a...
and then what you said about a person who does graffiti out in the world, they're doing what is, at the end of the day, an uncommissioned mural with spray paint, versus a person who's doing something that they're going to sell in a gallery with spray paint. They're both working with spray paint, but they're doing these in vastly different situations for different ends and different goals. So whether there's a clear distinction or a value proposition to either of those things, I don't know, but there is a difference.
Look at the inclusivity on you, Steve. Good job. Good job.
I feel passionately about graffiti.
That's great. Were you like old enough to be watching Style Wars and stuff?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was visiting Bombing Science at like every single day to see the new pieces people were putting up. It was it was a
Were
spicy
you
time.
old enough to be around for a magazine? It was the magazine at the time, 12-ounce Profit.
No, I don't know this at all.
12-ounce Profit was like the graffiti mag, like at the time. This would have been in the 90s. Like back, like you'd have to like get it as a magazine. It still exists like out there. It's like I think probably a website now, and they sell like some merch and stuff. But that was like when you got a copy of 12-ounce Profit, it was I don't know, man. It was like getting, I don't know, like you were hooking up to like the pre-internet sort of hive mind for graffiti writing. It was great.
Mm-hmm. No, I would love that. I would very much
Because
enjoy
at a certain point,
world.
I was just thinking about this the other day. In fact, there used to be. I was riding the train to Oslo. I was going to be drawing a model with a friend, just to like get out of the countryside and get into the city and like be active and see some other humans. But I was riding the train and we were going through a little town in Norway called Tunsberg, and there was some graffiti. Obviously, it's by the train tracks. Like everybody, that's always like a haven for throw ups and like graffiti. And it's funny that it looked really good. And I remember when I was a kid, like riding a train through the States, or you travel to some other state, and like there were places, and this is even like early when I like went to Europe in like 2000 and 2004. Like the graffiti in different countries was really quite different, and like qualitatively different in between places. Like there were some places that just didn't have good graffiti. Like their like hand styles were weak, if you compared them to say like New York or Miami or whatever, or Los Angeles. But even between like Los Angeles and New York, there were like dramatically different styles. Like you could tell like a West Coast writer from an East Coast writer. I feel like that's completely gone now. Like the regionality in graffiti writing is like a thing of the past, because everybody can like immediately follow everybody's style,
The only thing that I think I still see happen more in different places is people committing to like a time intensive kind of style. Like no one's out there doing crazy wild style pieces in like New York. That seems to be a decidedly West Coast thing. Like they're building up like geometric wild style things, and frankly, I don't like those. So I think people shouldn't. But I never see it happen elsewhere.
There goes the inclusivity, Steven. It's gone with the wind.
It's done. Wild style
inclusive when it's convenient for you. That's what you're saying.
Yeah? Damn right. This is the internet. So we have other art questions if we want to get into them.
Yeah, let's get into something that anybody else wants to talk about aside from just you and
me. It's people. You guys are having good graffiti conversation. It's not a lot of comments, but you guys are saying decent things with each other, and I appreciate that. So Gosh earlier asked, what challenges do you encounter when creating self-portraits compared to portraits of others? And how does introspection influence your approach to capturing your own likeness?
That's a really cool question. In fact, it brings up that recently I was talking to a buddy of mine, Pat Burns, who, if you are on my Patreon, you'll probably you'll know him, as I released some tutorials with him. But we were talking about my ongoing midlife crisis / emotional breakdown / all the other stuff that I'm dealing with. And he asked me, when was the last time you did a self-portrait? And, thinking back, I can tell you, the last time I did a self-portrait is the last time I couldn't afford a model, which is like years and years and years ago. When I first got out of the academy and I had like whatever the smallest version of having no money was, that's what I had at the time. And I couldn't afford to pay models. I couldn't do anything. So I pretty much only draw and paint self-portraits and like still lives and things. So it's probably since then, because I just burned out on it. Like I stopped being into it just because it was all I could do. And then eventually when I didn't have to do it again, I was like, thank God that's over. I guess I would suppose that the difference is that when you're depicting yourself, there's a little bit more of a you can maybe decide how honest you want to be. Whereas I think when you're kind of drawing and painting someone else, you can take one of two paths. Like you can either, if it's a commissioned portrait, you can really try and tap into who they are, or if it's not, if it's just a piece that you're making for yourself, then you decide what you want to say about it. But there's that saying that kind of all drawings are self-portraits, and I think what they're really getting at there is that what you choose kind of says so much about you, whether you want it to or not. Like the way that you choose to portray people. I always felt this about Lucian Freud, and it's why I don't like Lucian Freud, which is another one that, like, you can just kill me in the comments. It's fine. I get it. But I don't like Lucian Freud. I find, when I look at his work, I see the work of somebody who like really disliked people, that had a very negative view of humanity, and I don't have that. And so when I see his work, that's the message I get, and I'm not interested in that. Yeah, but I think always when you're looking at an artist's work, you're kind of spending time with their personality. Another one that came up a lot, question that students would ask is, like, how do I, if my work, what happens if I can't like express myself in my work? And I always thought, after kind of pondering that for a while, what a weird question, because it's almost like you would have to be pathological to not do that, like to actually be able to work on something so personally and so intensely, and then simultaneously hide your true feelings in it. I don't understand how that would be possible, let alone, the idea that you would, I mean, I think you naturally express yourself when you make choices, even that I choose to draw in graphite is a choice. It says something about me, that I like things that are minimalistic. I don't like complication, that I don't like things to be unambiguous, or rather, sorry, to be ambiguous. I like clear graphic statements. These are all choices that I'm making that are saying something about me.
I think it's a good answer for this.
Cool. I just rambled on for a while. I hope it was on topic.
No, very much so. I liked the journey over into Lucian Freud, and then came back around. You stayed on for this one. It was good.
Yeah.
Yeah. For this one, do you think that there is anything inherently? No. I think you kind of already answered this one. I'm pretend like I didn't say this one. For right. Lucian Freud, for the work that you see, do you think it's the expression of like that distaste for humanity that you were kind of talking about? Is that in the style? And do you think that's different from someone who has a style that's also kind of, I guess, quote unquote, like ugly, I guess people would say, like for Egon Schiele or Schiele, however people choose to say this.
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting one to parse out, because I happen to love Egon Schiele, but very much dislike Lucian Freud. I think definitely artwork is about much more than style. Style is like the capsule that kind of transmits, all the other kind of psychological underpinnings to the work. So it's not that it doesn't have a hand. It's just one small component in how you. It's like like in movie making, like it would be the color grading, and it would be the the choice of like cuts when you're editing, and it would be the do you shoot on film or do you shoot digitally? Like these are style questions, and they definitely like are a part of transmitting the story, but they kind of pale in comparison to like what is the plot, like what is the actual story that you're telling. And I think that the story that Lucian Freud is telling in general, and again, I know that nobody else is going to think this way, and that's fine or whatever. It's my thought, and I believe it to be quite true. I just know that a lot of people like Lucian Freud, and so I get kind of burned for this a lot. but I feel like that the way that he arranges his paintings, the way that he displays these people like they're just meat bags, in front of his ingenious brush. I find it dehumanizing. And people say that you found beauty in ugliness and all that stuff. Yeah, fine. But like, did you hear that or did you see that?
Yeah, it's like what you were talking about when a person brings their own things into the work, whether they mean to or not, while making it. The same thing applies to a viewer taking in the work.
Yeah, and I think you can find Lucian Freud beautiful, and listen. I'm not telling you don't like Lucian Freud. I'm just telling you what I see in the work, and like that's where my opinion comes from. And I've spent a lot of time with Lucian Freud. Even when I was a younger man, I definitely was like more into Lucian Freud. Now, Sheila, what's different about Sheila is I feel like there's a kind of vulnerability in his work, like that in a way you can feel a little bit that he is the people he's depicting. Like, I think that he cares about them like quite deeply and quite intensely. And I always get a sense of their humanity in his depiction. Which, like I said, I feel like is different in Freud. I feel like he's like the paintings are about how cool he is and how like dehumanized his subjects are.
I think it's fair.
The difference.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And plus, at the end of the day, if you like a different person and like a different artist than somebody else, you guys are never going to have to fight in the store over an art book. This is only a good thing.
Yeah, but it also goes into the category or phenomenon wherein like not everybody has to have the same cultural experience. Like it's totally okay that you absolutely love Lucian Freud and I can't stand him. Like it's kind of the whole point, Like because I love Blade Runner, I don't expect that everybody has to love Blade Runner. You might just not like sci-fi, and that's fine,
Do you wait, actually, Steven, while we're on Blade Runner, what is your cut of Blade Runner?
What is my cut? Like which of the Blade Runners do I prefer, or what is my take on Blade Runner?
Which version of Blade Runner on DVD or Blu-ray do you choose to grab?
I've never watched a Blu-ray of anything, so I don't have any frame of reference as far as that is concerned. And while the traditionalist in me wants to, I can't. Wow. If I had to choose, like we're talking Desert Island, right? Like which one do you take on Desert Island, 2049 or the original?
Oh no, sorry. There's like all those like the director's cuts, the final cuts.
I don't know about any of that stuff. That stuff remains a mystery to me.
Okay. Yeah, there's some wildly different versions. My favorite being the ones that drop off the really bad, like the terrible narration that Harrison Ford seemed like he hated doing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think that.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about the idea that it was something that the studios made them do, and they changed the ending of it. And so getting to see these different versions, like it's the beginning of director's cuts. It's one of the things cited for that. Yeah.
All right.
But for art questions and commentary, Mark Art, a fantastic last name for the stream, says, hi, can you please show us how to rid off shining of graphite? Do you want to talk to them about how to work with graphite in a way to not get shine?
Really the only way that you're going to do that is just to not go very dark. I mean, graphite shine is just kind of a part of graphite. Maybe the only way that I've seen that like mitigates it is actually to use washes of graphite, to use graphite suspended in water. And then at that point, you can generally get like a non-shining application. But I mean, at a certain point, it's like, that's just kind of how it is. It's a bit the medium. And if you accept that you want to work in graphite, then you're going to have some graphite shine. I'm sorry if it's a super uninteresting answer. And it's one that I think a lot of people ask and a lot of people want to know, but I mean, I've been working in graphite for, I don't know, 20 years or so. And I I haven't seen things truly in graphite that actually mitigate graphite shine. Like there are
Mhm.
pencils that are made, like Derwent makes a what is it, like or Stadler I think makes a like this ultra black or something, and they say it's 9B without the graphite shine, but it's not actually graphite when you work with it. It's
Hmm.
like it's like some carbon
Some
based
carbon
thing, and
thing.
it's really,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's kind of like it's got this very different texture, and it doesn't integrate well with actual graphite, you know. So if you try and like do a graphite drawing and then heighten it with that, it's not really all that fantastic for that. So I mean, is that a solution? I mean, not in my book. Like I didn't want to. I bought a bunch of them, and I thought this sucks. So I didn't. Sorry, Stadler. So I didn't kind of use them after that. I bought them, and now they're just in a box in my drawer.
Yeah, I definitely think, like you said, there's a reason you chose graphite. If you wanted to not work with graphite, you wouldn't work with graphite.
Yeah, I mean that's what it boils down to. I'm sorry, and like, you know, you can make choices. Like you can make drawings that are predominantly lighter in value. You know, that's one way that you can avoid graphite shine. But like if you need to get the darks, you probably have to live with the consequences.
Mm-hmm. This person here in the chat, A72, calling me by my full government name to try to get
Oh
me
yeah.
to say their question that they asked a couple times. No, now
Okay.
I'm going to make you wait longer. Anyway, on to a different question. Yeah, they asked their question and they brought it up again. Hey, don't forget my question, and then called me Stephen Clark in there. I don't know this person.
Is it a good question now? Is it qualitatively a good question and you're holding it back? Are you the bottleneck?
No. Now I think Stephen Bauman. I think that they are holding this back. No, I'll go ahead and
Okay.
bring up their question. Yeah, they said, I'm 23. My long-term goal is
Yeah.
to build a brand through which I can teach realistic oil painting to serve local language artists. Any tips about roadmap considering the global impact you have had in art?
First of all, thank you for saying that I have a global impact on art. That makes me feel really good. Sometimes, especially working remotely, you can kind of forget that there are people out there that you're actually connecting with. So it's nice to just hear that. If you want to serve a population, that means that eventually you need to connect with that population. Usually, the way that we're doing that nowadays is through social media, or it's the most convenient way, the most scalable way to reach the largest amount of people possible. And if you're going to do that, that means you're going to interface with a variety of platforms and their various algorithms. I say all of this as a preface, or to kind of set the scene for what you actually need to do. I would recommend that you rely as little as possible on improvisation. Meaning you need to like set a schedule for like releasing content, and then stick to that schedule for content releasing. This is especially related to like short form platforms like Instagram and stuff, where you know, your content goes up and then it's gone. You know, it's run its cycle in a matter of days. YouTube is maybe a little bit different. You can get away with being a little bit more idiosyncratic on that. But I would say develop a posting schedule. And if you really want like the full story, I would say go follow some like Instagram growth guru, because there's about like 1 trillion of them on Instagram. And their whole business model means that they need to keep you up to date as much as possible on like what works and what doesn't on Instagram. There's one that I follow. It's super like, it's not for everybody because it's so like smarmy and like in your face Instagram guru. But I mean, you know what I mean? They keep you up to date. He's called Brock Johnson. And he's this sort of former high school football quarterback turned Instagram growth coach. And I'm telling you, the content is like a cringe inside of a cringe. But he keeps you up to date on what's happening, and also helps you understand, like, you know, what you need to be doing in order to grow on that platform. for me, I can tell you the things that I do. Like I keep a posting schedule. I keep a content-based sort of context as well to that schedule, which actually is something that I learned or through some meetings with people that are a guy that worked at Meta, which is the parent company of Instagram, Facebook. For whatever reason, they were reaching out to creators and having like account manager type meetings with them. And one of the things that he said to me is that basically you need to vary your content because there's different ways that people interact with your content. Reels are there for reach, and posts are there for like actual like customer or follower interaction. So when you subscribe to somebody new, what comes up in your news feed is their posts, not necessarily their reels. And so your posts should be about your concept and your brand and the stuff that you do, and your reels should be about being eye-catching and engaging with a new audience. So those are the things that I can say generically would work for everybody. Where most people fall off is they fail to actually keep the schedule of making content and posting, because it seems daunting at first. Like it's hard to, like, how do I make content every day when drawing takes a long time to do? I mean, that's the problem we're all trying to solve, So I think just watch the trends, like keep a lookout at people that are doing stuff that works, and then kind of do that. It's not, I don't view like Instagram as honestly a very like creative forum for like, the coolest stuff. I think that it's kind of, people are on Instagram a bit for a laugh and a bit for an education and like a bit for some distraction. So that's what your content should be. And then when you talk about the stuff that you actually want to do, you want to teach people, you want to help people learn something, that's going to happen elsewhere. I hope that makes some use for you, some utility.
I think so. I hope that that they're receptive to the thing, because I think a lot of times people hear this kind of advice and it's what they've heard and they haven't acted on it. You don't need the
like you just
to go do it.
You got to be out there doing it, and it's not about making, this is the other thing, biggest mistake that people make. It's not actually about making the best content. The best content doesn't win. The most consistent content wins over time. And if you think, well, I've posted for 2 days in a row and nothing's happened, you need to post for like 3 or 4 months in a row, and then look at your results. After you've done that, then you can start to say, this works or this doesn't work, or whatever conclusions you want to come to about the algorithm, all that stuff. You need months of data to really say anything clear about it. So just practice posting. Like that's a skill in itself. I think that maybe it's underestimated as far as like what makes you good at Instagram. Like part of what makes you good is like being part of the ecosystem and understanding like how to like post stuff all the time. It's a small thing, but it has probably the biggest impact on your success.
There's a question I think that feeds nicely into this conversation. It's how much free time do you give yourself, Stephen? With all this time, all these skills that you're practicing.
I'm starting to give myself more now that the book is finished. I'm starting to give myself a lot more free time. In fact, in the next couple of days, I'm going to be flying to New York to do, well, it's not really free time. I'm doing some painting projects with a friend. We've been developing compositions that we paint together. I did this years ago, back when I lived in New York as well, and I haven't since we kind of moved to Norway. But we've been working on a series of compositions based in New York, and I'm going to go there and paint 3 of them with him.
Nice. You're taking all the cameras, right?
I'm taking my DJI Osmo Pocket 3 for sure. And there will be a YouTube video based on this, so I'm definitely going to be recording some things while I'm there and sharing it with the world, because I think it's like a really cool thing. In fact, it's actually a big part of my 2024 is that I wanted to work in like a creative team. I mean, I've been a Lone Ranger for like quite a long time now, and I love my independence. But I think that there's so much that you can accomplish when you have like other views, you know? Um, I'm a big believer in like having takes and having your opinion and kind of standing up for that. But like in the creative space, it's so valuable to have like multiple views and different takes on a situation. I think that's eventually what makes creative arts succeed en masse. Like that's why movies are not made generally by like one person or like one visionary. I mean, that's the rarest thing. More often, they're made by like you know, a team of creative people all working together to tell like a certain story. And that's kind of what I view this as, is this collaboration is like we're making a movie about New York, and this is the energy and this is the story and this is the vibe that we're trying to capture. And as such, of course, we've been working on these compositions for months. And we have, I think, 3 that are really strong and ready to go. So I'm going to travel to New York and paint those with him for about a week, and then I'm going to go to Florida. I'm going to see my sister.
Okay. And I'm assuming your sister also,
and do all the stuff
you've been
you're
working
supposed
on
to
a
do.
series of paintings together.
What? Yes.
I'm assuming that you also have like a massive project that you'll be working on in Florida. Not actually, but
No,
just with the
there's
course
no
of the week you talk
project.
about
Zero
things. There's a
project.
massive project.
There's no project. The only project in Florida is eating barbecue and seeing the sun. That's the big project.
Those are good options. Yeah, you don't get that there. Now, there's one thing that you mentioned in there that I did want to check in on. You mentioned a book.
Yeah, the book is happening. I just got it's called The Art of Portraiture. It'll be out in August. It is technically available for pre-order, but you know, I don't know. Believe me, I'll tell you about it once it's ready to order, and you guys can order it all at the right time. But what I was going to say is that I turned in the last pages a few weeks ago, and now I'm working, they're sending me kind of versions of the layout to kind of check out, and we're selecting all the right fonts, and I'm complaining over stupid things like, why is there so much color on this page? You know, stuff like that will matter to nobody except matters a lot to me. And then that's going to come out. But yeah, The Art of Portraiture. It's going to be all right. So for those of you that already know, I'm sorry, but if you don't know, I taught a workshop in Rome last summer, called The Art of Portraiture, and it was focusing on what I saw as one of the biggest problems that art students face, is that in order to make like a really beautiful, artful portrait, you need to be quite confident in your choices, because very often it's about what you select, what you show. Scorsese said it's all about what's in the frame, right? And I think drawing is a lot like that. It's all about what you choose to add and what you choose to deselect or opt out of. That constitutes the message that you're saying. So when I expect people to make an artful portrait, you need to know what you actually want and what's there, and what you feel about what's there. And that only happens one way. Like, you develop confidence through developing proof. If you think about like different parts of your life where you've been unconfident, and then why, I mean, anxiety is a good example for this. Like, what is anxiety? In my life, it makes me worry that, like, if I take a train trip to Oslo and I'm staying in a hotel, like, am I gonna have a panic attack, or am I not? Like, that's me being unconfident about like my ability to like hack it in there. So what do? I go to Oslo, and I go there like without my medication. I'm taking 2 medications. One is just for like residual anxiety, but there's another that I have, a diazepine, that is for like if I have like a full-on panic attack. Well, I went to Oslo and I didn't take my diazepine with me. This was per the advice of my psychologist, by the way. I didn't just kind of invent this myself. But it's like kind of an immersion therapy idea where, you know, if your anxiety would vote for you not to do it, you should do it. So now I developed some evidence that if I go somewhere without that safety net, I'm still going to be okay. And I think like kind of developing your voice as an artist is a lot like that. Like you need to know that if you don't slavishly follow the accuracy, that you're going to be okay. Or that if you deselect this part and you select that part, or if you rush in and use energetic strokes, that you're going to be okay. So the course was based on that, which meant the whole first week of the workshop, we just focused on studies, right? We had like 2 models set up in 2 different rooms, and people would focus like on, say, doing studies of individual features like the nose or the eye or the lips. We did anatomical studies. We did structural studies. We did like just we did a thumbnailing day where we just focused the entire day on making thumbnails. We did all of this stuff. And then the second week of the workshop, we actually went to make our portrait drawings, which means that we had like rehearsed all of the pitfalls, all of the stuff that we needed to know, we were ready for. And because of that, students made much better drawings during that time. Shocker. But so the book is that. The book is based on like, what are all the studies that you need to do in order to figure out how to make a portrait and be confident in your artistic choices. And then eventually at the end of the book, you know, I go through and I make a demonstration of this. We make a portrait. So the idea would be that I think eventually you'd like work along with it so that you would use it as a reference, not only for like what is portraiture about, but it's actually an entire outline of a process to get better at portrait drawing. Not just to like know what drawing is or like what's a shadow shape, but like how do you actually get good at stuff?
I do appreciate that. A lot of books stop at the first part.
Yeah.
It's like, this is shadow shapes. Again, work big to small.
Like if you wanted that information, like my at the conception stage of the book, my thought was, if you just want information, like the internet is already there. Like it's been there for 10 years, 20 years, already giving you all the information you need. What people really need to know is like, what's the roadmap? How do I actually get good at this stuff?
That should be the thing that's on the front of that book. That's the sentence.
I considered like a subheading that was like how to actually get good at drawing. But we'll see. I left it with the publisher. If they choose to include that, then it will.
Okay. There was a question from Frederick asking, is it a physical book?
It is a physical book. There will be a hardcover version that is eventually available. And there will be like, I think the standard edition is like the soft cover, but there'll be a limited edition hardcover that will be available as well. Yeah. So it's the publishing company out of the UK called 3D Total. They do a lot of artist books, and they're really like, it's a good team of people like to work with. I really enjoyed working with them, and like also they offered better terms than like all the other. I've been approached like 3 or 4 times like to do books, but it's like the online kind of creative economy is so great for artists, but it's also great for like companies who want to make money from people who don't know any better.
Yeah.
So like, like a lot of companies come in and they're like, we're going to invest like, this amount of money in your, whatever. And then they're like, but what are you going to pay me? Oh, nothing. Like, oh, well, maybe we don't do it then, because artists are so notoriously like unsure of what a career path looks like. They don't know how to say no to things. And I lived that for years, and I'm only 5 or 6 years into understanding like what my real value is, in terms of like projects like this. But they came along with a really good offer, and so it was the right time to do it. By the way, for all you creatives out there that you want to work, like, the ultimate leverage is being able to say no. So I think that's like your base camp. That's what you need to build to, so that you can actually get paid what you're worth. I remember a friend of mine who was far more in the business world, like he runs a kind of his own like tech company. and he said to me that when I was 20 when he told me this. He said in your 40s you finally start to get paid what you're worth, and like I mean, you can say that, it's one thing to say it. Eventually, what you realize is that like in your 20s and 30s, you're kind of developing the concept for like what is the lay of the land, like how does this industry work. And then in your 30s, you're kind of positioning yourself to be somebody who could operate well, who could make a living inside that industry. And by your 40s, hopefully, you figured it out to the extent that you have some leverage, and you can choose your projects instead of like just being honored to be offered, whatever amount.
Yeah, I agree. I honestly, I've been taking some notes here throughout all of this for some different things that I think it would be cool to expand on in some way, and I definitely put that in there. I think that's a good one to go over in its own thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of career stuff, and the thing, the career stuff for artists is so opaque. Like it's, or at least it was when I was coming through. Like it's, I mean, artists always talk about. Actually, this is funny. It's a joke that's like when bankers get together, they talk about art, and when artists get together, they talk about business, or they talk about money. So it's like artists will like talk about it, but very rarely do people open the door and like how to actually. I can't tell you the amount of like time. It's so annoying. I remember. All right, so as a young artist, this is like I'm gonna leave this person anonymous for how absolutely enraged this makes me. I asked this guy when I was studying. He was already like showing in galleries. He's a bit older than me. He's already showing in galleries, and like would oftentimes talk about how much he was selling paintings for and stuff. And I asked him once, like, well, like, how do you do it? Like, how do you like talk to, like, what's how does it work? And he gave me the, you'll figure it out. Thanks for absolutely nothing. But it's like it's this like wanting to keep it, like he figured it out, obviously, but was not so interested in helping me figure it out.
I feel like
which I think is just so annoying. What's that?
In this situation, like, even if you don't want to give someone else whatever your like secret sauce was, tell them at least like one thing not to do. That's fine. That's safe.
Sure. Yeah. But he gave me the you'll figure it out. And I didn't for years figure it out. So you think it's just like you're defective, like it's not, you can't make. I mean, there's things that you can do that are more helpful, and things that you can do that are less helpful. And maybe I'll just do it in live streams and stuff, because I don't want to make it a course, because I don't want, frankly, I don't want people to have to pay for it. I just want to I just think it's like stuff people should know, and yeah, maybe live streams are a good place for all that conversation, because like developing all the courses and the content. I mean, there's a lot of people that make a living telling other people how to make money, and generally, it's kind of sus to me. Because if you know all the stuff, why aren't you just out there making money?
What's the guy's name you said earlier? Dick Durbin?
Oh, Brock Johnson.
Yeah, Brock Johnson.
Yeah, you don't getting hella pub out of this. No, I don't want to be. And like I think artists, like, it's hard enough to like make money without people trying to make money off of you learning how to make money. Like, it's just, anyway.
Yeah, that's fair. There was a question, a request. It was Veritas Art asking, please do regional pricing for the book. The currency exchange rate is messed up here, but I'd love to get a PDF version of it, regional pricing. That's a complicated one.
I mean, I have to say, like, I won't have control over exactly that. I know that the publisher will make available like a PDF version. I think, actually, no, I had a conversation about this. I'm not clear on it. But I mean, if I have any input, I'll definitely bring it to the table. But it's one of the few things that I'm doing where I'm not actually involved in the marketing and distribution end of it, which for a book is I never wanted to be. Distributing a book sounds like such a nightmare to me. I wouldn't want to be a part of it.
Yeah, no, it's really, really hard to make that happen, even when you are in control of it, especially in this day and age. So it'd be cool if it happens, though. Veritas. Just
Yeah.
it might be a digital option that you choose. There's a comment here from Irvin Torres. They said, I'm from Mexico. I used to not have art friends because I'm mostly self-taught. Now I have close friends who are artists, and it's so gratifying. What's it like when your life partner is an artist?
I think it's great. I think they understand. Yeah, he's referring to my wife Cornelia, is a really, really amazing painter. And thank you for bringing her up. It's great. I mean, you share the struggles and you share the joys of it, and they kind of understand like how much of a hermit you need to be sometimes to kind of accomplish what you need to accomplish. So in a way, they're a kind of perfect they're a perfect partner. There are challenges, of course, as well, like because you both have these kind of non-traditional careers, you know. So like as you become a grown-up and you need to like, I don't know, like get a loan to buy a house, like then you have two people trying to explain their non-traditional careers to a bank instead of, you know, one person that's like on the straight and narrow and another one who's like kind of a cowboy, you know. But I think
I can imagine that conversation. So both of you sell pictures, and people aren't
yeah,
guaranteed to buy these pictures.
oh my goodness. And like forget about telling them you're on Patreon. It's like, so you're from Mars. Tell me more about Mars. I've only heard of it. I don't know what it's like to live there. And like Norway is such a kind of buttoned up, like everybody just works for the corporation. Like that's the idea in Norway. So like talking to a bank here was absolutely painful, I have to say.
There's I don't know if this is a question that you necessarily tackle often. MJ Artworks asked for tips on making YouTube thumbnails and titles.
Steven, you should feel that one.
Make your message clear. The normal things for this are make sure that the title can operate as your thumbnail. The thumbnail is a thumbnail, and the first 2 seconds of the video look like the thumbnail. It's a promise you're making, and you have to pay off that promise.
Check out this guy. Check out this guy.
This is what I do.
Yeah.
It's actually been kind of fun since I make shorts, and that's the main thing that I do now at Proco. Besides like set building, operating cameras and stuff. I'll watch the videos that we're about to put out for free, which are usually long form videos that were not made for publication on YouTube. And so I'll just try to make like basically a short that starts off the video. Not always possible, but cool when it works.
Nice.
Treat that the first 30 seconds as another thumbnail for your video. Bengerly. This is unrelated. Thank you. But Steven, how do you get Pentel mechanical pencils in so many different colors? I can't find them anywhere.
You know, the one that I got that I really like so much is not a Pentel, but it's the neon colored Mono Zero. Really love that. I had to go to Rome to get it, but that's where I got. Well, I just happened to be at an art supply store in Rome, and they had like the neon colored version. I've never seen it before in any venue, so I picked up two, of course. But getting the different color, it's such a nerdy thing, but it's absolutely what I love. Yeah, like they're just different venues where it's available. Like, you know, these Pentel pencils. Some of it's like color coded to the size. So the 0.9 millimeter is the only one I've seen with yellow. The red is only a 0.3 millimeter. I have a hot pink one, this color around here somewhere, but I couldn't find it before I was live streaming actually. And this is a 0.5. So they tend to be color coded to the size that they are, unfortunately. But I wish they had like, you know, maybe not custom colors, but I wish they had like, you know, you could get whatever color you wanted would be really awesome. But in my experience with these companies, some of them are more into working with artists than others. I'll say that. Like there's a brush company called Trekell that actually recently. I'm actually a pro team member of Trekell.
Oh.
Yeah. Which fulfills like a childhood dream of being a skateboard company's like pro skater. But they're like really into like working with artists. Like what, like Courtney, who runs the place, is like asking, well, what do you want to do? Like, what do you want to see happen? Like, what materials do you want to see? And like, I think, yeah, it's, you know, I hate to be the it's 2024 guy, but yeah, it's 2024. Like, it's about time. You know, that like, you know, we're not chopped liver. Like, there's an art community out there that uses stuff and like knows how to use it. And like taking our advice about what to make and what to put out there, like there's a few companies that do it and there's a lot that don't.
No, I very much agree. I think like my only experience with anything like this was working with Olo markers.
Okay.
They reached out as a guy who used to work for Copic. He felt they were
We
doing.
need to bleep that out. They're not getting free pub on my live stream.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, there's a marker company out there in the world, and there's a guy who used to work for a previous company that shall not be named, and he left there to start a new company because the pre-existing company sells a ton of what they're already doing. They don't have to invent anything, change anything. But there's some people who've been using the different tools for a long time, and they're definitely going to have some views, opinions, and thoughts. Address them.
Yeah, exactly.
Doug pointing out that we are an hour and a half in, and there are 119 likes and 103 people watching. So we've crossed
Doug,
like event horizon.
Like. Is that a thing that I'm not aware of? Like, I feel like that's a thing that I'm not aware of. The like
event horizon.
Yeah,
we'll talk about it further on later streams. But if you guys want to find out more about the like event horizon or any other further art things, I recommend you go to Steven's Patreon. You guys can find out about Steven's journey learning about the like horizon, and all the other things that he wants to tell you about. This is my first plug,
most notably the portrait composition course. That's the one that came out this month that I'm really, really proud of. When I first started releasing that, it was like people had just been waiting for it. But basically, it's a way to address, I think, something we talked about earlier in the stream, which is this kind of nexus between art and studies. Like, I think that studies, much like the study I'm making right now, can be highly artful. But you need to like learn to make artistic choices and how to like frame and understand things. So I made this course, which is called Composition for Portrait Drawing, where I kind of unambiguously tell you the things that I do to better prepare myself to make artistic choices in a portrait drawing. And that goes along with all all of the other like educational content on my Patreon. Like, you know, sure, I'm going to teach you a lot about how to like properly study ahead. Like, that's super important. But what else is important along with that is like how to actually extend that, how to go to the furthest boundaries of like what you can do in terms of like making a very artful study. Excuse me.
No.
It's all right. Thank you. But that's all on. That's on. I think. Did you put the link on? Yeah, the link's on screen. Yeah, just go there.
Yeah.
But there's a link in the description to this video as well that you can follow. By the way, the cool thing about Patreon for patrons is, and actually I guess it's eventually for me too, is that the value of my Patreon only increases while it stays exactly the same cost to you. From the day I started Patreon, it's been $10 to subscribe to get access to all these lessons. It's still $10, except now there's like dozens and dozens and dozens of lessons that I'm adding to every single month. So it's a value proposition that isn't even a value proposition, because you're not going to get like a better deal anywhere. But if you want to learn like portrait drawing specifically, I would say it's the place to be.
Yeah, I very much agree. Yeah, I had meant to put that pitch, that like throw to that so much earlier in all of this. But you know,
everybody's gone. I'm like, by the way, I'm on Patreon.
Yeah, I mean, I brought up the link intermittently, but I didn't like drill into it. I had this whole idea about starting the stream off. We're like 6 minutes into it, and I go, by the way, today's stream is brought to you by Patreon.com/Stephen Bauman. And
Yeah.
no, I failed. Everyone else in the
No, but that
future,
was
you guys will
really.
see it.
This is that oh god, what was that comedian? Really controversial comedian, died young, was really into drugs.
Oh, that's so many comedians, Steven.
That's so many comedians. He had this bit about the anti-marketing campaign, like how marketing people were so sleazy and he hated them. And then like in his bit, he sort of framed this idea of like a marketing guy at his show going, "That's really brilliant work, going after the anti-marketing, dollar. That's a good market, Anyway.
Someone in the chat here said, put forward Mitch Hedberg. I don't think he was controversial.
Definitely died young. Definitely was into drugs.
Yeah.
And Mitch Hedberg would have loved this, but it wasn't. It's a guy. He's a little bit older than Mitch. It's a previous generation of Mitch Hedberg. This is really going to kill me.
It's older in one capacity, but neither of them became old.
Is that a commenter? That commenter deserves a prize if that's so. That was you? Well done. Well done, Steve. That's nice. That was effective.
So many people putting forward comedians here. Let's see. I did want to bring up Veritas Art said that they did 30 Sargent studies this month that were done very quickly. First and foremost, I hope that you feel achieved and accomplished. When you hear a person talk about doing a bunch of studies very quickly, is there anything that you want to remind a person to try to consider in there while they're doing studies?
Like the first thing is like repeat. Use the same materials over and over and over. The more you can make it like a similar process from start to finish, like the more progress you're going to make. So if you're doing those Sargent studies, do them the same size. If you're doing Sargent studies, do them in the same time frame. You know what I mean? Like always take 2-3 hours or whatever. The more that you kind of remove variability and make the process uniform, the more progress you're going to see, because it's kind of like a rehearsal. It's almost like the way that an athlete would practice. Like they don't, a baseball player like won't switch the weight of bat they use every time they go to bat. They would use exactly the same one. They try to take exactly the same swing. They try to make it repeatable so that when they're actually in the game, they're not thinking about it. They're acting on kind of instinct. And that's what you want to be doing when you're drawing and painting. Is you just want to be reading and reacting.
Ignacio Nava said, my question is, after doing a few bargs, we talked about this before. I'm not sure if it's barg or barge because I've only ever read this name.
The first one.
Okay. Should I move into casts or practice fundamentals, perspective, structure, construction?
Ooh, wow. Very cool question. Now, early in my education, I was not in a school where they offered any background on perspective. And probably the reason for that was because it was a school that was primarily focused on kind of visual phenomenon. By that I mean like shadow and light and just direct observation for drawing and painting. Whereas perspective is much more important to schools of thought that would be involved in like more constructive drawing. So when you're starting out with basic geometrical forms, rather than a more visual paradigm. So it's understandable that I wouldn't have been educated in this earlier, but I have subsequently come to find it very, very important. That being said, there's not a lot in bargs that would make you, think of drawing with perspective. It's just not. It's not really a part of that educational experience, and that's okay. So if you were starting with barg and you were intending to move on towards like more visually based drawing and painting, like if you want to paint and draw like Velázquez or Sargent or Carlos Duran or whatever, then continuing to study visual aspects would be probably your best bet. If you wanted to broaden your horizons in terms of like understanding structural drawing, then I think taking some time and learning perspective would be really, really useful to you.
Mm-hmm.
But it
Did
is
you
a
feel
little bit
any-
of like a not a side note, but it is a little bit of like a digression into a slightly different discipline if you go to kind of learn that. If you're trying to be as direct as possible and kind of like, as time effective as possible, I would say go on with like, cast drawing and then save the conceptual stuff for a little bit later.
Agreed. Do you think that a person should try to plan their study according to what their end goal is in this way? Like if a person
It's
knew that they were
ideal. It's ideal, but like I do find that probably the reality of the situation is that you probably don't know very well your end goal when you're just starting out. It's that you can't know what you don't know. And so like as you learn more, you're going to learn and understand like more clearly what your actual end goal. Like the end goal I would have told you I had when I was like 24 is not the end goal that I eventually had or have. So be cautious. Like it's good to be directed, and it's good to be like clear about what you want to do and self-motivated and all that stuff and self-guided. But also, leave yourself some wiggle room to understand that end goal is also going to evolve over time.
Yeah, absolutely. Adrit Joseph is asking, where are you most active in your details? Like certain websites, social media platforms.
Oh, where am I most active? Where am I most active? Well, during the latter part of the book writing campaign, I was most active nowhere. I was I was like barely able to keep up with all of my kind of social media activities. But if you like want to be in touch with me, talking about stuff, it's usually going to be through Patreon. There's a chat option on Patreon where basically like you can like send me messages, like DMs on Patreon, and like that's where, like, if you want to talk, that's where you'll always get me. Otherwise, like on Instagram, a lot of times I'm just busy. I have time to post and do stuff, but I don't have as much time lately for like interaction there.
That's fair. For the person in the chat that was asking about that, the name on Instagram is going to be the same as that last part of the Patreon link that you see on screen right now. Stephen
Bauman Artwork. Yeah. And there's a broadcast channel there if like you want to find out like what's going on. Usually I post on there like what's happening. And like what new lessons are coming out and like what I'm working on. I'll put polls on there and stuff.
There was a recent
up to a point you can find me there.
There was a recent poll that you posted in there. People got to help you decide some of the content for Patreon.
Yeah. No, check this out. So that's a really good point. So actually tomorrow I started doing these town hall meetings on Patreon where basically like me and all of my subscribers on Patreon. And this is, by the way, like you can subscribe as a free member as well. So anybody that's either a free or paid subscriber on Patreon, we jump on a Zoom call and I spend a couple hours just like talking about really specific stuff that people want to know. Like there was recently a conversation about the idea of turning form with color, right? Which is it's a bit of a complicated concept to unpack, but we're going to talk about that on this one, amongst other things. Usually people are asking like, career advice, drawing concept advice, education advice, stuff like that they just want to get, like some straight talk on. But that's happening tomorrow, actually, at 4:00 Oslo time, which is, I think it's about 9 a.m. 9 a.m. New York time, 7 a.m. or 6 or 7 a.m. West Coast.
Yeah, 7.
Yeah, 7 a.m. So if you wanted to like be in for that, like I said, it's completely free, but it's just you got to be on my Patreon page to get the Zoom link. So go there, and I think it's like one of the first posts. It's a public post, open to the public. And you can get on that Zoom call and chop it up with me in person.
Yeah, Patreon's a fantastic way.
You know,
Patreon for the people who I would imagine demographics wise, the people who are here in the stream right now, who've made it all the way to the end of this, whether as a VOD or while it's live, you guys are looking to learn art. Patreon is a fantastic way to get to be able to follow a person sharing pretty much exclusively useful content about learning to do art, and having a free option is a pretty cool one. So
yeah,
go over. There's a clickable link in the description. Go do it. Or if you really want to try like hard mode, type the words that are on the screen right now.
If you like to do things the hard way, which if you're a representational artist is probably true.
Is there anything that you want to address in the piece that you've been drawing throughout this? It's not a thing that we've talked about.
Ooh, what am I addressing? I don't know. Like I feel like I have this vague idea of the subject, but there's definitely like some proportional things that are like way off. I keep measuring a little bit, but I get the feeling like I feel like maybe the eyes are like not big enough for the head, because I didn't take measurements up there initially. So if we take a measurement now, yeah, that's too small. Eyes are too. That's a horrible mistake to make when you're making a portrait drawing. You get these beady little tiny eyes. It's awful to look at. So that's what I have to say. This is an awful drawing. This is like really terrible, and you guys should like turn this off as quickly as possible and take.
It's been sitting for 2 hours looking at these beady eyes. Oh my God,
it's awful. I apologize so much. No, I don't know. It's just a nice little kind of vignette. I mean, I try to keep myself on these live streams a little bit less ambitious because, you know, like inevitably there's only so many things that you can kind of draw in the time that's allotted for a live stream. And usually the thing that suffers in a graphite drawing is going to be the values. So I try to make a pretty big value statement at the start and then just try to work on becoming more specific later on in the stream, which, you know, I mean, I feel like it arrives at a certain kind of place that's not, it's not so bad. I mean, you know, it's a live stream drawing. What do you, it's, you know, it's quickly made. We're chopping up questions while I'm doing it. You know, there's giving myself all the possible excuses that I can.
For why all of these things in there. No, I think that honestly, like as far as live streams go, like it's one of the main times I get to watch people work, seeing their full process. It's not just me working on something. I think this is absolutely one of the better ones that have come out of also answering questions at the exact same time.
Nice. Well, I'd say that part, I will give myself credit for that. I've been answering questions and drawing for a long time, both like in person and online. So I do feel like I'm in my wheelhouse doing that. Like I feel pretty comfortable doing those two things together.
Yeah, I think that's definitely evident here. It looks like Veritas Art also said, "I'm done too. Any hashtags to use for it?" I think. Do you mean sharing your art so that Steven can see it?
In which case, tag me on IG, people. Tag me on IG. Just use hashtag. Well, I guess, yeah, you can't.
Hashtags are busted right now.
Directly. Hashtags are busted. Don't use hashtags.
Yeah. They like deprioritized showing actual like explorability in hashtags right now. So like a direct tag is one of the best things.
Okay. A direct tag, you'd probably do it in your stories. It'd probably be the easiest way for me to see it. Because I think I like, for a while I had like anybody could like tag me in a post. And then I realized that like people were just like tagging me with all sorts of random stuff. And I got a little bit annoyed by it because there's like, it shows up on my page. Like, so people are like posting weird stuff and then like tagging me on it. I'm like, I don't want that on. I don't want people to like have a tab on my Instagram where they see other people's weird things that they wanted to tag me in.
Yeah.
So if you tag me in your stories, I think that shows up. That shows up in my notifications, and then I'd be able to see it.
That's a perfect one. I agree.
All right.
I don't know. So we have like 6 minutes left of the time that we had initially blocked in.
What happened?
I said we have 6 minutes left of the time that we blocked in, and I was very proud of myself for block in. But
oh, nice.
I don't need your pity, nice. I already acknowledged that
Real
it was a
good
bad
job,
joke.
Stephen. Really great. Really am proud of you.
But yeah, no, I don't know if you wanted to like do a little bit past that, or if you wanted to adhere to that time directly. Like
Probably
this is
we just go to
entirely
the
up to you.
time directly. I mean, there's it's only so long a live stream can be. But
10 hours.
I did want to say, like, here's the idea. Here's the big picture plan. I intend to be doing live streams. I haven't done it in a long time. Been a bit stop-start. But now that the book is, at least the bulk of what the book is finished, I have a little bit of time to myself again. And I want to start live streaming on YouTube because it's something I really used to enjoy. But then, you take on these really big projects and you can't manage to do it all the way through. But now there's a little bit of air in the pipes, and I can take some time and do something cool. So I think at the very least, I can tell you that I'll be streaming once a month. And I'll post that date certainly on Patreon. I'll let everybody know, but I'll probably put it in my Instagram broadcast channel as well. So if you're following me on IG, that's Stephen Bauman Artwork on Instagram. Sign up to the broadcast channel. That way you'll get updated when I'm like announcing, when the live streams are going to be or whatever. Usually it's going to be this format where like I'll be drawing and talking and kind of asking questions or answering questions and things about whatever comes up. But I think we also, Stephen, we talked about doing like topical live streams. So like live streams that are based around something. Like when I was, as I am going through all this like mental health stuff, I thought of doing we all know I'm not a doctor, but like I'm going through mental health stuff, and this is what, as an artist, like this is what it's my experience is. Like doing a live stream based on that, because I know, the more that I kind of tell people about it, like the more inevitably people like open up and they're like, yeah, me too, for years and years and years. I think for myself, I can say that what I desperately wanted, at the early part of this was just to hear somebody that had like been through it talk about it. And it's harder to find than I thought it would be, or at least, harder to find in a way like that I could relate to than I thought it would be. So maybe a stream about something like that. We could do a career stream. I think the career stream would be a really good one. Just unpack all the stuff that you have to do to build an audience, and how do you create value for that audience, and in a way like fund your art career. These are all things that are like doable. It just requires like to dedicate to a topic and to take the time to do it.
As you said, that's the big picture plan. But if you guys want to learn about small pictures, remember there's a whole thing about thumbnailing that just came out over on patreon.com/Stephen Bauman Artwork. You guys should check it out. It's really good.
Guys, this is why I invited him on the stream. That's the reason. That's the reason. Wow. I can't follow that. We're done. We're done here, everybody.
You just tell me to push the button if you want to push the button.
And we're out.
All right.
See you, everybody.
Bye.